Hello, welcome to my channel, Edible Thoughts Makes. My name is Stephanie and this is episode 151. I'm coming to you from a beautiful wintry day in the middle of December, year 2025 here in Minnesota. We've gotten so much snow and it is just delightful. It brightens everything up. It's so fun to walk in the snow. I don't love driving in the snow. The other night it was like white knuckle gripping the steering wheel driving because we could hardly see anything. You couldn't see any of the lines on the roads because the snowplows hadn't come through yet and everybody was driving like 15 miles per hour. So I am having some technical difficulties here. I can't figure out what's going on with the focus. So I've recorded parts of this beginning section so many times that I don't know what I've said or not said. There's that. And if I repeat myself, that's why. And if I leave things out, that's why. So the way I usually format these videos is I start with an intro welcome section, then I go into what I'm wearing, finished projects, then we go into works in progress section, which I'm skipping today because I have so many finished projects to share with you and things need to get mailed off, and for the sake of time, I'm just not going into works in progress today. And then there's usually an eats and reads section where we talk about things that I have baked or cooked recently, and I might put up like a little slideshow because I have some pictures of things, but I just don't know if I have the time to really go into them. And then I'll usually write out where those recipes came from, what cookbooks, in the description box below this video. Not all of them have an online link to go to. And then sometimes there's a food for thought section where I share with you things that have been in my brain, on my heart, oftentimes related to making, not always, but making is part of my 24/7, so sometimes it ends up being related to that in some way, shape, or form. I do use Ravelry for my project pages that are knit and crocheted items. I think everything is knit today except for one set that is a non-fiber related craft. And then I will link to designers, makers, things like that that I talk about or forget to mention but have shown on here, so that will also be in the description box below this video. If I speak faster or slower than your preferences, YouTube allows you to adjust the speed, and you can also click on that CC button for closed captioning. I do go through and edit the captions that YouTube provides and correct spellings of things, as it tends to have certain words that aren't spelled correctly, and I'm not sure why, because the words that they put in aren't actually real words. They're not good spellings of words either, so I'm not quite sure. I'm not going to say them though, because then I will have to go in and correct them. So just a note, closed captioning is provided, and I do go through and edit things so that they make sense. Let's start with what I am wearing. I currently have on my Birdie Parker earrings. I love these earrings. My friend Emily of the Botanical Knitter helped me pick them out at one of our local fiber festivals, and it is silver and copper and has knit stitches on it, and I just adore these earrings. They always make me feel kind of fancy. And then I have on my Summer Lee Designs Cuff Club socks. I knit these in Nomadic Yarn's Succulent Garden colorway. I think this is the Twisty Sport yarn. And then I have these cabled cuffs. Not even sure if you can see this on the screen right now, so if you can't, sorry. They have these cabled cuffs, and then I used a Shadow Wrap short row heel. The contrast color is Knit Picks Hawthorn, which is labeled as a fingering weight yarn, but I feel like it can lean closer to a sport weight yarn, so I tend to use that for any contrasting colors in socks that use sport weight yarn. So I have on my Avenue pullover by Tori U. I tested this pattern for Tori and I love it. I feel like this is one that I can have in multiple different colors. I would enjoy knitting it every single time. It has a lot of interest in the details in that top section. And then there are the tidy finishings that I feel like Tori U is just great at. And it has blissful stockinette in the round for the sleeves and the body. Now, if you don't like doing that, that's totally fine. I enjoy it because I don't have to think too hard and I can take it with me places once I get past the increases and the parts where I have to pay attention. And I tend to knit on the go a lot or sneak in a few rounds and stitches here and there, and so it's something that I need to be able to pick up and put down at any time, in the sense that I don't have to reference the pattern again or figure out where I am in a spot. And I pretty much can only do that if it is stockinette in the round or like one rib pattern all the time. I cannot really pick up and put down a project constantly if there are different repeats to do in lace, even in color work, things like that that just require a little more attention that I need to be sitting down and focused to do. Anyway, tangent, back to the Avenue pullover. This was published December 2025. It comes in $9 USD. It is a DK weight pattern. The gauge is 20 stitches by 28 rows in 4 inches of stockinette. Recommended needle sizes are US 6, which is 4mm, and a US 3 for the ribbing, 3.25mm. And I did get gauge on the recommended needles. Finished bust circumference ranges from 34 inches to 66 inches, and the amount of ease recommended is 3 to 6 inches of positive ease. I knit the second size within the recommended ease range. I think mine is 5 or 6 inches of positive ease, and the yarns that I use to achieve gauge are Pearl Soho's Good Wool in Driftwood Gray, and Knitting for Olive Soft Silk Mohair in, I believe, Dusty Rose. If I got those incorrect, I'll have it on the screen here. And I love the cozy fabric it created. I basically warmed up the gray to have a slightly mauvey pink tinge to it. And there's a very, very subtle marl. I'm not sure if it's showing up on camera at all. Maybe it's all blurry. Sorry. I don't have like a viewfinder to look at, so I have no idea if it's working or not. And hopefully it's recording, because I don't know if it's doing that either. This is knit top down. It has these beautiful shoulders, which mimic a set-in sleeve, and there's no picking up. So there's zero gaping. It's all just done in the increases of how the shoulder shaping is done. And I just love how tidy it looks. The pattern comes in 2 neckline options. You can do a crew neck or a V-neck. I'm partial to the V-necks. I wear a lot of collared shirts and I don't want my neck area to get hot or itchy, and so I just tend to like V-necks. Having said that, I have cast on a turtleneck sweater recently, but it's also because it is getting really, really cold. We have a really cold front coming where the high is not even above 0 degrees Fahrenheit, and if you factor in wind chill, it'll probably be like minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit. So I am leaning hard into that coziness, and mohair does not bother me, and so unless I'm too hot. If I'm too hot, everything's itchy. But right now, it's plenty cold, so I'm not itchy. The only changes I made to this are I lengthened the sleeves by 2 inches because I like my sleeves to be long. I feel like when they start riding up because of just like normal wear and like this elbow section gets stretched out and takes some of the fabric, I get really annoyed when they end up too short. Like unintentionally too short. I don't mind if I meant to make it 3/4 length sleeves or meant to make it bracelet length, but I don't like it if I want it to be long and then it shrinks. I also lengthened the body by, I think, 1/2 inch, and it's the perfect length. It does go several inches past the top of my hip bone. It is definitely a full length sweater, and I have worn it multiple times already. I've worn it with jeans, I've worn it with corduroys. I currently have it on over like a striped shirt, tunic type of situation, and I feel like it's really comfortable and cozy, and I have on leggings with it, and I might even be overheating it a little bit with all of this talking, so I may be changing into something else, which I probably should anyway because I have other finished projects to share with you that are also garments. All right, outfit change. I am wearing the Avenue vest, also by Tori Yu. I also tested this pattern for Tori, I think it was a year ago, and this is my 3rd version. You may have seen it already if you watched the video on my collection of vests and slipovers. I knit this in October, and the yarn that I used was provided by Pearl Soho to try out their new base. This is the Wild Donegal yarn, and I'm going to pull up the information on it and hopefully have it here on the screen. It's classified as a bulky weight yarn. It comes in 139 yards for 100 grams, and it is 100% non-superwash merino, and they all are tweedy, and the tweed bits that are in the yarn aren't all the same colors from colorway to colorway. It is a 3-ply woolen spun yarn, so it is very light. It's a very textured yarn. I had a great time knitting with it. The pattern of the Avenue vest is written for worsted weight at an 18 stitch gauge, but I wanted to try something a little more structured, and so that's why I went with a yarn that is not necessarily for the patterns, heavier weight than the one recommended in the pattern. I did have to adjust my needle size. I didn't go up in needle size because I couldn't go down in pattern size, and it just would have been too big, and so I wanted something structured, but I didn't necessarily want it way oversized. I ended up going down 1 needle size. I still ended up with 17 stitches instead of 18 stitches for 4 inches, but I love my finished result. I also changed up my neckband and my finishings slightly from the pattern, and I'm going to stand up so hopefully you can see a little better. The colorway I used is called Pink Lavender. It has these beautiful pastel tweed in it with like pink and sea green and dark purple and white. And so I knit my V-neck to be a little chunkier, and then I did an Italian sewn bind off for all of the edgings. And because my sizing was a little off due to my gauge, my shoulder areas come slightly over the shoulders, which is something that I also wanted. And I ended up picking, I think, the smallest size in the pattern, but ended up, I don't remember what my final circumference ended up being, but I knit a cropped version. It hits just high hip, and I love the look of it. I have worn this with a linen dress. I've worn it over collared shirts. I just finished it end of October, so I haven't gotten a ton of wear out of it, but it has been still in frequent rotation. So I guess that is a lot of wear. I don't know. I have reached for it. I do really like it. I have thread and elastic through the V-neck and the armholes because I felt like it was just flaring a little bit. Again, the yarn that I used is not the one recommended in the pattern, and so it's slightly heavier, slightly chunkier, and slightly more structured, but I was flaring just slightly, so I wanted to cinch it in a little bit. So I did do that along the armhole edgings. The V-neck area, I didn't want it to get too stretched out, and so I also thread it in there. You can't see it at all. It's on the inside, and really it kind of just trails within that Italian sewn bind off edging, so you can't see it at all. And I love how it looks. I'm going to stand up and hopefully it will be in focus so that you can see. The total amount of yarn I used was 310 grams or 431 yards of the Pearl Soho Wild Donegal yarn for my third version of the Avenue Vest by Tori Yu. Ta-da! Outfit change! This is the Campus Cardi by Amy Sher. And this pattern came out in September 2025. I tested this pattern for Amy. This is my second version. This pattern comes at $10.50 USD. It can be purchased on Ravelry or Amy's website. This is a DK weight pattern knit bottom up with set-in sleeves, and I love a good cardigan. My first one I knit in Harrisville Designs Daylights, which is the yarn in the sample, and I purchased that from Amy's shop. This second one I knit in Pearl Soho knitting yarn, the Sour Citron color, and the yarn support was provided by Pearl Soho for this project. I knit this second one to be full length, and I did change up a couple of things just for a different look. So my first one, I will hopefully have a picture here on the screen, is definitely more neutral. It is more cropped, it is a little more fitted, whereas this one, I went up a size for the sleeves and the body compared to my previous one. No, scratch that. The first one I knit in a size A with size B sleeves. This one I cast on for size B everywhere, and I knit the full length version. There is A-line shaping in the bottom half of the sweater to accommodate hips, and then I only changed sleeve length slightly. I think I did more length in the stockinette portion and then shortened the cuffs by just a little bit. And I did that by not changing up the decrease rate halfway through where the pattern says to change the decrease rate. I just kept with the same, and that lengthened my sleeve. And then I decided that I didn't want to knit super long cuffs, so I didn't. I might have shortened the cuffs by an inch but lengthened the whole thing by 2 inches, something like that. I'm pulling at it right now because the shirt I have underneath is more of a 3/4 length, and I don't like wearing 3/4 length sleeve things underneath full length things because I end up with this weird bump on my forearm and it just feels weird and I keep pulling at it. So sorry, I keep pulling at it. This is a V-neck construction and I'm going to stand up here and show you the length of my cardigan. This one does go probably almost covers my butt. I don't remember if I lengthened it more than what's in the pattern, but I love how it turned out. I love my buttons. I purchased these from the Yarnery and I purchased every single last one. So I'm actually short one button, but how likely am I to find the exact size that I need in chartreuse buttons that match this golden chartreuse sweater? So I decided to leave off the button on the very end because I don't tend to button the very last button on a cardigan. And if I find another button that's exactly the same, then I'll sew it on, or if I decide I have an accent button that I want to add, I'll sew that on. However, I believe I was told that this button is discontinued, and so I may not have great luck in finding a sixth button. But that's okay. I'm very happy with how it turned out. I love how it looks. I did sew on the shank in the button, where as you're sewing, you loop it around between the button and the cardigan fabric to create a shank so that when you button the cardigan, you don't end up with the fabric pulling on the button band. I'm sure it'll show up, but basically you create this shank is what it's called, so that when you button it, there's room for the fabric to sit so it doesn't become all wavy and bunchy, which is what happens if there's no room for the fabric, so it pulls. I learned that trick from my mom years ago. My mom sews and does all the crafty things. My maternal grandmother taught sewing, and so a lot of those little tips and tricks have just been passed down through the generations, and some of the techniques I don't know the names of. Some of them are in multiple languages because I grew up speaking 3 different languages, and yeah, so it is just taught by experience and doing. I feel like I jumped into details of the sweater without telling you all the specifications of the sweater. Sorry about that. Did I mention the gauge? It's 20 stitches by 31 rows. I did get gauge with the needle size recommended, US 6 4mm needle for the main fabric. I did change up the ribbing for the neck band. I used a US 4 instead of a US 5. And I did pick up more stitches along the button band. I just felt like it closed up the gaps more neatly for me. And then I did a decrease, evenly spaced decreases the next row and worked that into my ribbing. And it was still more than the recommended number of stitches to pick up, which makes me think I might have made my cardigan longer because of the number of stitches that I was over, but it's fine. That's something that's very easily adjusted. I also changed up my bind off. I decided to do all my bind offs in pattern, and that's not what the pattern says, but that's what I wanted to do, and so that's what I did. I also prefer to do all my bind offs with a double pointed needle that is at least 2 sizes bigger than the needle that I used to knit the ribbing. That way I can make sure it is not too tight and I don't have to concentrate so hard on making my tension even as I'm trying to loosely bind off, because then it just ends up looking really sloppy. So for example, if I used a US 4 for the ribbing, I might use a US 6 or a US 7 to do my bind off. That way it can still be very tighty, but not tight. I really don't like the feel of a tight bind off. It just doesn't make me feel good. So on my Avenue pullover, I mentioned that the shoulders were meant to mimic a set-in sleeve. This cardigan actually does a set-in sleeve, and it does that by creating these shoulder sections that are done with German short rows, and you create a sleeve cap. Mia from Knit and Grace is on the Amy Sure Makes team and has written this wonderful blog post on Amy Sure's website about how these set-in sleeves and shaping a sleeve cap works. I will link to that in the description box below this video if you would like to learn more about that, or maybe you are knitting this and are just a little confused and just need to get situated or oriented and how it works. I feel like my brain is so scattered, so I'm really sorry if the information isn't coming out in a very linear format. I forgot to mention that there are optional bust darts if you prefer bust darts in your garments, and that way the front doesn't lift up. I don't need bust darts, so I don't knit them, but those are also created with short rows. I ended up using 540 grams of this Pearl Soho knitting yarn DK in Sour Citron, and that's the equivalent of 1,183 yards. Again, I knit the size B, full length, longer sleeves. I love how it turned out. It is exactly what I envisioned. I wanted this bright burst of color to wear, especially in the winter, but also into spring, and I feel like this color is so much fun. I have been dreaming of having a chartreuse cardigan. I've never had a chartreuse, well, maybe I have. I don't know, but I really wanted a woolly chartreuse cardigan that is just so cozy and comfortable. This is 100% non-superwash merino wool, and I have knit so many garments with this. It does pill a little bit, but I would say it doesn't pill significantly. It's not one of those yarns where you sneeze and it pills, because I've definitely worked with yarns like that before, and I feel like those are reserved for very non-friction type of items, like a hat or something. But this yarn is definitely one of my favorites for garments, hands down. DK worsted, I feel like I've knit it at 18 stitches to like maybe 21 or 22 stitch gauge, and I really like it at all of those. I feel like it just wears really well. It's so comfortable, it's light, it can be really drapey, it can be more structured if you knit it at a denser gauge. It's a rounder yarn, so it allows lace and texture to really pop, and it's all heathered. I love a good heathered yarn, and it comes in a variety of beautiful colors, which hopefully I'll have shared with you here on the screen. In the coming months, you'll probably see lots of other projects knit with this yarn, because I do have one? I don't know. I have a couple of projects either on the needles already with this yarn, or have them assigned to project bags and patterns printed out for use with that yarn. All right, my friends, I think, well, not even halfway through. We're going to go through the rest of these fairly quickly. They are not garments, and so, oops, sorry, one is a garment and the rest are not. So I think I won't have as many details or maybe as many tangents to go off of them. I don't know. This is the See My Vest worsted by Emily Baudouin. It is a free pattern from the Maker Maker website. I believe they're an Australian company. And this is a gift knit. I will be mailing this off. It is for a child, and I love how it looks. I knit the smallest size. The pattern isn't designed for children versus adults or anything. There's just like the smallest size, which is a finished circumference of, I believe, 30 inches. And I did adjust my gauge slightly, so I think I ended up closer to 29 inches, which will still give positive ease for the recipient. I really love how it turned out. I used Patton's North America Classic Wool Worsted in the Heath Heather colorway, and I used 306 yards or 158 grams. I did shorten the armhole depth from the pattern slightly. I think I shortened the body length slightly, again, just to adjust for a child. And I did do an Italian sewn bind off on all of the finishings with the 1x1 ribbing. This is a free pattern. I think I was knitting on this in the previous episode. That was about a month and a half or so ago, and I finished it early November. This is a worsted weight yarn that I used US 7 needles, which is 4.5 millimeter for the main fabric, and then for the ribbing I used a US 4 or 3.5 millimeter needle. This pattern starts on the back, and then once you knit to the end of the armhole depth, you put those stitches on hold, you pick up to knit each side of the fronts, and then you connect those, knit a little longer until you get to the armhole depth, and then you join in the round and knit your way through the body. You pick up stitches for the neck and the armbands, and that is it. The sizes come in XS to 5XL, and that ranges to fit a 28 to 30 inch bust to a 60 to 62 inch bust. You get the numbers for the size it's recommended for, as well as the finished garment measurements, and then you can decide what works best for you. The amount of yarn is also listed on how much is for each size, and the skills needed for the pattern. I recommend the pattern. I found it very enjoyable and easy to follow. I feel like it is a great base pattern that you can really add anything to. You could do color work in this bottom section and not worry about trying to fit it in with any increases or any of the shaping. You could do stripes, you could do a monogram. There's just lots and lots of different options. I love this heathered neutral color. I feel like it'll be easy to pair with anything underneath, and I hope the recipient will love it. The next item I have to share with you is a hat that I was working on. I want to say I shared it in that previous episode. It is from the 2025 October Sock Squad colorway from the Farmer's Daughter Fibers, and theirs is a monthly yarn subscription where you don't know what colorway you are getting. You do get an inspiration photo from their Sock Squad journal, and this year was artwork from the Land and She. I'm going to show you October's. Here is October's inspiration. And the title is Focused In, which I think I kept saying it was just focused. And the base is Elkhorn sock. And I really enjoy the Elkhorn sock base. I find it super soft. I don't particularly find it as durable in socks unless I hold it double or knit it at a tighter gauge. So if I knit socks with that yarn on a US 0, which is a 2mm needle, it might take forever, but the fabric wears much better over time. This time I decided to hold it double and knit it into a hat. I knit the classic ribbed hat, which is a free pattern by Jake Canton for Pearl Soho. I have knit probably a dozen of these hats. I just love them. They fit really well. This is a 1x1 beanie, and you can wear it slouchy or not. And I cast on for the adult medium, and then I actually knit the length of the hat to be way longer than even the large, and I used up the entire hank of yarn, and since I was on autopilot and I kept going, I actually needed to add in a little more from other Sock Squad yarns in the past. I just tried to match it as well as possible. If you look really closely, you'll see the difference on the top. It is still a cream base and it still has speckles, but the speckles are more like an olivey green color. But it's on the top of the head. It's fine. I'm not worried about it. I love the speckles in this yarn. It has browns and oranges and reds and teals, and it is just lovely. I did knit it much longer than it states in the pattern, so it can be double cuffed for extra warmth or single cuffed for a slightly slouchy look. I've got a big hair clip in right now, so I'm not going to put it on for you. You'll just have to believe me that it fits really well, and it's super soft, and I love how it turned out. So I used up all the yarn that I had, which was 108 grams. I think if you wanted to use the mini skein that came with it and knit stripes or something into the brim, you definitely could. And if you decided not to knit it super long like I did, which is several inches past the longest size or the largest size, you could finish it in the 100 grams. And I just went way over. And really, I only needed an extra 3 grams on the top. So I think if I had just shortened it by like 3 rounds, I would have been fine. I knit, I think, 86 rounds from the cast on edge. It is knit bottom up, and then I started the crown. So if I had stopped at like 83 or even 82 rounds, I would have been able to finish without running out of yarn. The next 3 items are all hot water bottle covers. 2 of them you have seen before. I will just share them real quick. This one is in Malabrigo sock held double. This is a DK weight pattern, and this colorway is Arco Iris, which means rainbow. I did shorten the neck on this one, and that means it doesn't have enough to fold over, but it does cover the neck part of a hot water bottle. If you want to know more about how hot water bottle works or why people use hot water bottles or the covers, I do have a video on that, and I will link to that so you can watch that video. And I love how this turned out. It's a highly variegated yarn. It is so much fun. It is so pretty. There are just greens and reds and light blue and orange, and it is just a beautiful, cozy hot water bottle cover. And the pattern that I used for this one is also from the Maker website, like from the best. It is a free pattern, and it is also a blank canvas. You can do whatever you want on it, which I will share with you in a minute. The pattern for this is knit bottom up, and you can choose to knit it flat or in the round. There are instructions provided for both. I like to knit them in the round. I do a Turkish cast on for the bottom. I think the pattern recommends a Judy Magic cast on, but I learned the Turkish cast on and they do the same thing. Not the technique, but the result is the same, and so I just do what I know. And so I did the Turkish cast on, and then did my increases, knit even, did my decreases, and then changed to a smaller needle size to knit the ribbing. I believe it's a US 6 for the main fabric, which is 4mm, and a US 4, which is 3.5mm for the ribbing. This one is getting mailed off soon, so I'm glad I got to share it with you briefly here. The next one is one that I knit for myself. This is knit using Purl Soho's Note yarn. This is a merino alpaca yarn, and it is super cozy, super soft, DK weight, and I used all yarns remaining from previous projects. This warm brown on top is raw sienna. This light pink is, I think, pink sunrise, and then this heathered robin's egg blue is vintage celadon. If I got those names incorrectly, hopefully they'll be here on the screen to correct myself. This one is knit top down and all using US 6 4mm needles. So you have this nice chunky rib on top, and then you do increases, and the increases are in a slightly different position than the previous one. The previous one has the increases and decreases on the edge, whereas this one has it a little set in. And then I decided to do color blocking stripes throughout, and then you have decreases on the bottom that are different from how they are on top. And my decreases are a little bit wonky because I wasn't paying attention and I decided I didn't want to fix it. So this one, I believe, looks more correct than the other ones, but it doesn't really matter. It's a hot water bottle cover. So I haven't used it yet, but I'm so excited to. This one is for me. This is in a non-superwash yarn. In general, I prefer to gift the hot water bottle covers in superwash yarns. That way the recipient can easily care for them and not have to worry about it. And so that one that I just shared with you is for me, and it's in a non-superwash yarn. I don't think I mentioned the previous one is a Purl Soho hot water bottle pattern called Warm Wishes hot water bottle cover, I think. And so I knit it again, and this one I added color work to. So they look kind of like window panes, and all the yarns here are Farmer's Daughter Fibers Sock Squad yarns held double. All those yarns are fingering weight, so I just held them double here. And I followed all of the stitch counts in the pattern, but I just added in this color work. So once I add in a new color, I do one round of that color, and then I switch to knit one of the new color and then 3 stitches of the background color. And I just continued that throughout until I got to the size that I needed. I love how it looks. I think it's so much fun. And this one also needs to get mailed off shortly. It is so much fun to create these little pieces of functional artwork with yarns that we already have on hand and love, and get to play with color and create new beautiful things. The next pair of socks I'm going to share with you are these. This is a slightly modified Socksploration Shadow Wrap heel sock by Denise DeSantis of Earth Tones Girl. I started these February 2025. I finished them November 2025. There's no reason it had to take that long. They were just socks that I could pick up whenever, and I love how they turned out. The colorway is by Mud Punch. It's a self-striping sock yarn. It's called Delicate Clouds. And the base that Mud Punch has is more plump, and I love it. And I tend to find that using a US 1.5 or 2.5mm needle works best for me, and I cast on 56 stitches. The heel, I did a Shadow Wrap short row heel, and I used Patton's North America Coroi socks in the colorway Muslin, which is like an undyed natural color. I used 6 grams of that, and then for the main yarn I used 68 grams or 238 yards. For the ribbing, at each color change I did a knit round so that the purl bump doesn't come through. I do have a tutorial on that, but that's really essentially all it is. And I did an extra thick rib, and I love how it looks. I wanted to get through the whole color sequence, and yeah, away I went. I love how it looks. I love how they wear, and these sock blockers are wooden and bird themed, and I love birds. They are by Knitting Left and no longer made. If you can find them secondhand, they are so, so special. They are all handmade. The next pair of socks I have to share with you are for my husband, and these I actually knit out of sock tubes. So basically they are cranked tubes. I think this was a 64 stitch count, and I purchased these from Mud Punch. The colorway is Butterscotch Butterfly, and I purchased these on sale, I want to say, was it last year or 2 years ago, for $25 USD, not including shipping from Canada. And the contrast colors I used, Hawthorne Fingering, which to me reads more of a slight sport weight or heavy fingering. This is the colorway Newport. It's kind of a purpley brown gray color. And the tube, what I did was I split the tube, and I still have some remaining that I'll probably knit myself socks with. So on one end I picked up and knit this ribbed cuff. And then I decided to do one knit round and then bind off knitwise after I did my 2x2 rib. And then I cut in for the heel, so I removed half of a round of stitches and I knit a shadow wrap short row heel, and then I grafted those live stitches to the other live stitches on the other side. And then the foot was already done, so then I picked up and knit a rounded toe. I think it turned out super cool. I had not done a grafted shadow wrap short row heel before on sock tubes, and I think they look really cool. So I'm really happy how these turned out, and these are Christmas presents for my husband. Shh. We made it to the end. The last thing I have to share with you is non-fiber related. So you may or may not know this about me, but in my undergraduate studies, I was a biology major and a painting minor. So if it was up to me, I probably would have gone to school for all art. However, that wasn't the case. So I minored in painting, and I dabble in it still here and there. I can just pick it up whenever. My easel is in my house, but my oil paints are very dusty, and I have lots of canvases waiting for art to be created. But in this stage of my life, it's just not happening right now, but I know eventually that door will open again. On the other hand, drawing, watercolors, all of those things are much quicker and easier to just pull out whenever, and the cleanup is a lot faster, and it just allows me to still tap into that creative well without having all of the buildup of setup and just like having to take up that space for it physically and in my brain. Oops. So I still pull out watercolors here and there. I keep it next to the area where I work on things, and so it's just much easier to take out whenever I feel like it. So I freehanded some really whimsical little birds in knitwear, and I painted them, and the whole thing probably took 30 minutes. And it was just so much fun to do, and I'm going to share them with you right now. Here's the first one. It's a cardinal wearing a hand knit hat. Well, I don't know about hand knit. Probably hand knit, right? If it's for a bird. I think it's so cute. So much personality, so much fun. So it's just on like a blank card. I have a bunch of thank you cards to write, so I made some. The next one is a bluebird wearing earmuffs that look like Christmas ornaments and a green scarf. Super cute. You can tell it's a blustery day. The feathers are blowing, the scarf is blowing. Next, we have a chickadee in a fun slouchy hat and scarf, a matching set, if you will. We have so many birds around our area, and I love watching them, and in the winter they get so puffy and fluffy, and they're just so cute. Okay, the fourth one, I'm not entirely sure what kind of bird I was going for here. I think it started out kind of like a finch and then morphed into some sort of sparrow-y thing, but I don't know. It doesn't matter. So this little bird is wearing glasses and is reading and has a fun little hat, and I just love it so much. I mean, birds, knitwear, reading, that's like my personality all wrapped up. Maybe throw in a cookie or some other sort of delicious, tasty thing. So these are my little cards, and I will probably be making some more because I have way more thank you cards to write, and I just thought I would share a little bit of this art. Okay, anybody still here? I feel like I've been going on and on and on forever. This is now the Eats and Reads section. I think I don't really have the battery capacity in like my physical body and on the camera to go on about a lot more, but I think maybe at the end I'll just put in like pictures of some of the bakes that I've made. I'll just put it at the very end. So if you decide to keep watching, there'll be some music and there'll be some baked goods. And then as far as books go, I am reading one right now that's called For the Wolf. Let me grab it real quick. I didn't write down the details of the books like I normally would have because I like to generally talk about them when I'm done reading them. However, so much time has lapsed from the last one and I wasn't writing things down because it was just so busy here. And then I haven't finished this current one that I'm reading to tell you all the details. So what I think I'm just going to do is share with you what I'm reading. I'm currently reading For the Wolf by Hannah Witten, and it is part of the Wilder Wood series. This was published, I believe, in 2021, and the second book is already out. I don't know if there are more in the series or not. I didn't look quite into it. It is a debut dark fantasy read. It's atmospheric, it's folklore, it's like partially familiar. It's a much darker Beauty and the Beast type of retelling. I don't know if it's meant to be a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, but it definitely has Beauty and the Beast in the story. I am enjoying it. I must say there are parts of it I'm kind of confused. Like some things are really repetitive, but then other things I'm like, wait, where did that come from? But I also read only at night before I go to bed, and sometimes I'm really tired, so it's possible that I could have skipped some sentences or skipped some paragraphs and just completely missed some key information. But I am enjoying the read. I am maybe 2/3 of the way through, and I do plan on picking up the second book. At least so far, right now, I think I will pick up the second book. I picked up 2 other books recently. They are novellas. They were recommended by a friend of mine who has similar taste in books. One of them is Silver in the Wood by Emily Tesh, and the second one is The Wood at Midwinter by Susanna Clarke. They are both short novellas. I look forward to digging into these as a quick little enjoyable read. I have not read into them in the sense of figuring out what they are all about. I just plan on jumping right in. Have you read any of these 3 books? No spoilers. I also feel like I'm very much a mood reader, so I have to be in a certain mood to read certain books. And also I'm a seasonal reader, so I really like to read like cozy, wintry type of book settings during a cozy, wintry season. All 3 books definitely fit into this type of seasonal read. Of course, the 2 that I just picked up, I don't really know, but one of them says midwinter, so I'm assuming it's wintry. And then they all have to do with dark forests. Maybe that's just where I'm at right now. I don't know. I mean, look at my mug. It has trees on it, so take it for what you will. I think that is everything that I wanted to share with you today. Thank you for taking some time to chat with me, to sit with me, to craft with me, to just show up. So I appreciate you. I feel like this season can get so hectic, especially if you have children who you care for who are participating in different things, either in school or out of school. It's concert season, it's recital season, and then there's like obligation season. I feel like it's obligation season. My friend Denise of Earth Tones Girl recently had mentioned that it's okay to say no in this season, and I 100% hands down agree with that. I've gotten way better at it in my adult life, and I just feel like it is really important for self-preservation, but also for my priorities. Like, what are my priorities? Once I figure those out, well, it's pretty easy to say no to some things for the priorities that are set in place. And I am a big believer in setting boundaries, and I feel like they all kind of go hand in hand. So yes, there are some things that I absolutely can say yes to and will definitely enjoy and say yes to, but there are other things that I'm okay with saying no to, and I can stick with that, and I can move on and not feel bad or guilty about it, because there are other things that I can say yes to if I say no to some things. But if I say yes to everything, then it's not going to bring enjoyment for me, and it's not going to allow me to be how I want to be with my close friends and family. So self-preservation, obligation season, you figure out where those priorities are for you, you figure out where those boundaries are set for you, and know that it can move around because it doesn't have to be a hard set line. It just has to do with how you're feeling that day, what you've got to do that day, what priorities you have, what your schedule looks like, what your to-do list looks like. Anyway, I am going on and on a tangent. Deep breaths. I hope you are doing well, taking good care of yourselves, your loved ones, and your neighbors. Cheers to being creative, and I will talk to you next time.